In this video, we're going to go over how to make the train body for the miniature train project. So the first thing we're going to do is start a 2D sketch, and we're going to do this on our YZ plane. The reason for this is we want to create the back of our train first. And I'm going to create a circle to start with, and I'm going to make sure that I put the center of our circle in the center of our screener here. That would be the origin. And I'm going to type in the diameter. That dimension will be right here, and we're just going to double our radius. So it'll be 2.35 times 2. And if you can't see what's going on now because your part kind of vanished on you, what you can do is press home on your keyboard and it will zoom in or out depending on where it needs to go to show you the entire part. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the 3-point rectangle. So I can click here. Make sure you don't tilt this at all or else you're going to have an angle to it. So I'm going to be 90 degrees, click on the other side, and then you can bring it down. Now we're going to add some dimensions to this. So for here, we want to have it 2 inches across. You can find that dimension right here. Just bring the lines down and you can see it's 2. And we want a dimension from here to here, so the very bottom to that edge, and that will line up nicely with this dimension right here. It says 0.375. Alright, just double checking, make sure nothing's going to move. And there's 2 things that we need to do. We need to trim this outside of the circle because we don't need this anymore. And this next part you don't have to do, but it makes it a little bit easier for the extrusion. If you highlight this section right here, the top of your rectangle, and click over here, which is construction or construction line, it'll kind of make it invisible in a way to the extrusion. So when I finish sketch and extrude, you can see that it automatically selects it. If you don't do that, you'll have to click on both pieces and then change the dimension that you want to have it extrude. So how far I'm going to have it extrude is the dimension for the back of this edge. So you can see right here that it goes right there to here. So we have 1.75. The next thing that I want to do for the train is kind of bring out this piece right here. So I'm going to start a sketch on this surface. It'll show up as the right on your little cube over here. What I'm going to do is project the geometry. So now I can see the outside edge. On earlier versions of Autodesk that popped up immediately, you didn't have to do anything, but for some reason in 2005 you have to do that yourself. So what I'm going to do again is another 3-point rectangle. So I'm going to click on this edge, that edge, and I'm going to move this up. And this dimension from here to here, if we look back on our sketch, it's going to be this line. You're going to look over and right here. So 0.88. The next thing I'm going to bring in is a circle. So I'm going to try to get the little dotted line to show up. I'm not sure if you can see it in the video, but there's a little dotted line that'll show up right in the center. Kind of helps line everything up. And you just want to make sure you don't connect it to there because that's not where it should be. So just click a little bit further down for right now. Okay. So we're going to dimension this to the center just to make sure you got it in the right spot. Also, it locks it in place. And now we want to lock in the center of where that should be. And if we look back on our sketch, here's the center. And it is, let's see, oh, it got cut off a little bit. There it is. So 1.38 inches. And again, it shows a radius instead of a diameter right here. So we can type that in as 0.75 times 2 or just 1.5. Alright, so for this one I'm just going to leave it as is and I'll show you what to do for the extrusion. So you can see, unlike before, there was only one shape and it would extrude. Now we have two shapes, so it doesn't actually know what to do. Actually, we have, three shapes. So we need to tell it that we only want these bottom two. So our rectangle and our circle. And our dimension for this, if we look at our train, it doesn't let you know what the distance is for here to here, but it does let you know the distance of the entire train, and we have the distance of the back of it. So we could just type that in as an equation. So I'm going to type that in as 5.5 minus 1.75. Alright, so it's starting to look like a train body now. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut out this little chunk right here. So start a sketch on the side. I'm going to add in, we need to project our geometry first, just so you can see the edges. Plus you need something to dimension off of. And again, I'm going to start with a rectangle, the 3.1. Just makes it a little bit easier sometimes to lock everything in place. If you wanted to for this one, you could do the 2-point rectangle. Not really important which one you use. Next thing is we're going to add in this dimension for right here. And this one's a little bit harder to tell what's going on, but I'm going to add it in as a rectangle for this part and a half circle or an arc for this other part right here. So our dimension from the back edge of our train to the edge of what will be our rectangle is 1/4 of an inch. And from the bottom, let's see, for this dimension it goes from the center. So actually we're going to have to put the arc in first. We get a dimension from here to here, so it'll just be a little bit larger and the correct size for our arc, and we can just kind of place the arc in. So for that one we have a radius of 0.5, so that means the diameter across, or the height of what we need for our shape right here, would be 1 inch. And this, since we have green lines, we can move it around, so I'm going to shift that down a little bit. We can add in the arc. The one that I'm going to use is the center point arc. It's a little bit going to be easier to use than the 3-point arc. The reason for that is we can lock it right into the center of our line. So a little green dot that popped up, that was the center of our line. Now that green dot, we want to click on there, move it over, we want our other green dot. Okay, now we want our dimension from this center all the way down to the bottom. And that dimension is 1.75. So we have that point over, and there's our dimension. So this way we can now finish our sketch. And if you wanted to, you could have went in and turned that line again into a construction line. Or when you our extrusion's not selecting it properly. So let's go back to that sketch. And let's change that line to a construction line. Let's see if that fixes it. Yeah, that fixed it. Sometimes you gotta carefully highlight what you need. Sometimes takes patience. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do for this one is I'm going to change the distance to all, and most of the time it automatically switches to cut. Sometimes it doesn't, so if you need to, click on cut, and then you can click on OK. Cut through our entire shape. So if we turn to the side, you can see it cut through. The reason why doing the distance is all is a lot easier is if you change your dimension or realize you dimensioned something wrong later on, instead of having to go back and change that dimension, if you change like maybe the width of the part or something, it'll automatically cut through the entire part no matter how wide you make this. The next thing I'm going to do is actually start adding in all of our fillets and our rounds. The reason for that is it's a lot easier to do right now than adding it in later. So if we click on fillet, we actually have two buttons we can use right now. Fillet, all. So that is all the fillets. The way you can remember fillet versus round. Round rounds the edges. Fillet kind of fills in those edges. So if this was an actual object, this would have to add in more material. Rounds would actually be removing material. And then, let's see, fill it. Round all. I know the directions just say round all edges, but I will leave this up to you if you would like to also add in the fillet. Personally, I like both of them. It makes it look a little bit nicer, but that option is up to you. But just make sure you do round all the edges. And then apply, so you can see how it looks now. And now we can add in the holes for our part. So we have a couple holes that we need to drill in. If we drilled in all the holes first and then we decided to do the round all button, it would try to round all of the holes that we put in also. And that's not what you want to have happen. You want to have nice sharp edges for all the holes that are drilled into the part. So the holes that we're going to put in right now, we will do these side ones. These will be where the wheels get attached to the train with the axle pegs. So we're going to click on 2D Sketch. Alright, and we're going to click on this side. Press the home button. So for your geometry, you're going to want to make sure that you click the very bottom edge, not this part, because this isn't going to give you the correct dimensions that you need. So the very bottom edge and this edge right here. So now I'm going to add in 2 points. Right now it doesn't matter where you put them because we're going to add in the dimensions. But the reason why we're using points instead of doing circles is because we want to use the hole tool instead. So the dimension for this first point from the edge is going to be 1 inch. And from the same edge over to here, we are going to have it as 4.5. And now we need our dimension from the very bottom. And that is located right here. So we have 1/2 inch. And same dimension for this one. So 1/2 inch. So finish. So the nice part about this is when you click on the hole, it automatically selects both of them. You don't have to do that yourself. Okay, right now we want to make sure that we have everything selected the same. So we want it to be 1/4 inch for the diameter, so 1/4 inch. And then we have 20 threads per inch, and it's coarse thread. So now we have to select our thread. So now we have the thread selected. Now we have our options for thread. So we have our size, 1/4 inch. Let's see, 20 threads per inch, coarse thread. And one thing that students tend to miss on this one is full depth. You got to check that little button. The reason for that is if you don't, let me uncheck that again. You see this right here? So the thread will only go in 1/2 inch, and that's not what you want. We want it to go all the way through. So make sure you check that button. And then, okay. Alright, so now if we go to the other side of the train, you can see those little bits of thread. If you did not check that box, you won't have that thread show up. Alright, so our next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some holes on the front part of our train, but if you were looking at it for a work drawing, that would be considered the right side. So we're going to start our sketch. And again, our lines, you want to make sure it's the very outside of the train, not this part, very outside of the train. So this time we're going to put in 3 points. Going to be placed roughly around here. So we're going to add in our dimensions. So for this first one, it is 0.375. For our second one, we have 1 inch. That one's already set. And our last one is right here. So we have 1.625. Alright, now our height for our first one, we can see that is 0.125. And that's actually going to be the same for this one right here. So again, you can type it in again, or you can do this where you can click on the other dimension and it'll bring it in with a letter D and then a number. So it's referencing the dimension, and this one I guess is dimension 32. So it's referencing dimension 32, so when I click the check mark, it's automatically the same. So if I change this and let's just add another number in here to show you what's going on. See how they both move at the same amount? So sometimes that speeds up dimensioning, depending on what you're doing, especially when you're trying to see what might work, what might not work for something. You can just do that so you can change a whole bunch of things at the same amount at the same time. So it's not quite what I wanted. So our last dot from there to there, and that dimension is from here, go from the line over, and we have 0.625. Okay, so we have our 3 dots, or our 3 points. So we finish our sketch, use the hole tool again. Okay, this time we need to change some things. So this time we need to change the termination to a distance. We do not need thread, we just want a simple hole. And you can see the symbol right here. That symbol means that it's a flat bottom, so we want to change our drill point to a flat bottom. And the diameter for the hole, we want to be, make sure you select the correct one. One's for the depth, one's for diameter. Okay, so we want it to be 0.125. And our depth, so this symbol right here is our depth symbol. So we can see that actually it's the same dimension. So that makes it a little bit easy in case you mix the two up later on for the next one that we're going to put in. So this hole right here, that'll be different. So what we're adding the hole in for right now is for our Cowcatcher. And we can add in the one on the back. So if this was on our work drawing, it'd be the left side. So I'm going to click on this surface. And this one is actually a lot easier because of how I set it up originally. That point that was for that circle that we made first is actually the same point that's used for putting in that hole. So you can actually just click on the point tool, click on that yellow dot, and it'll turn green if you got it locked in place. This, unfortunately I can't zoom in to show you what it looks like, but the point instead of being green is blue. You're just going to have to kind of trust me for that one. I'm going to click finish, click on the hole. So for this one, if we're looking at it, we want the diameter, let's see, to be 1/4 inch, and the depth to be 1/2 inch. Right. And for this one, I'm just going to leave it for a flat bottom. Okay, so almost everything's done. The only thing we still need to do is, oh, and that hole that we just added in is for the hitch magnet, and if we were adding on more trains, that's where the other ones would connect to. Alright, so the last thing we need to add in is this hole for our the train stack. So what we could do is put in a plane. Right. So we're going to click on here, and we want that plane to be kind of level with the top, so you actually need to select another surface to line it up. So I'm going to use this one right here. Right, so here's our plane. So you're going to start a sketch. The strange thing about this is if you click on it, you click through it. But if you click the edge, then you click on it. It's a little weird, but you just got to remember that when you're doing that. So again, we need to add in our geometry from our last layer, and remember you need to click on the very edges. You got to get the very edges for this. So we're going to put in another point. So this one again, we want it nice and centered, so it's a 1 inch. And then from the very bottom of our view right here, we want it to be 0.88. We're going to finish, use the hole tool, and for this one we want the diameter to be 0.5 and our depth to be 1/4 inch. Yep. And right now we have that work plane that doesn't make our train look that fantastic. So what we can do is right click on your work plane 1 and uncheck visibility. And now we have a finished train body.